This afternoon for number 5 for the minutes for October 23rd, and then the consent 6 through 9.
And for the minutes, it's just we added the minutes from the special board meeting last night.
Yep. So I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
I got a motion from Lou and a second from Rick. Any other further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and carried. Approve and correct the minutes from the October 10th, 2017 regular school board meeting, and then the October 23rd special school board meeting, both in your packets.
I'll make the motion to approve it.
I'll second.
I had a motion from Randy and a second from Cheryl. Any other further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and carried. Financial reports. We got the September 2017 Treasurer's Report in your packet. Bob, do you have anything on that?
No, I looked at them today and talked with Joan about it. Everything is right now is working the way it's supposed to be working.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the Treasurer's Report.
Second.
I got a motion from Mark and a second from Randy. Any other further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and carried. Number 7, audit and approve the bills, additional September bills of 2017 and the October 2017 bills. Cheryl?
I had occasion today to go in and check through the bills, and I didn't see anything jumping out at me. It was all pretty much business as usual. I would recommend we pay the bills.
Okay, got a motion from Cheryl.
Second.
Second from Lou. Any other further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and carried. Consent agenda. We have quite a few things underneath the consent agenda. The first one will have some assignments of the fall, winter sports. There's a couple of them that don't have assignments yet, but they are looking for it
We are,
apparently.
correct.
So for the basketball, we have head coach Jake Heimerman. Junior high is John Kiefler and Brad Pence. For wrestling, we have a head coach of Tim Roberg, an assistant Jason Magus, and in junior high is Tracy Piepenberg.
Oh, Miss Girls basketball.
Oh, sorry.
You got the coach here.
I thought we did that last time you said.
We just did the head coach last time.
Okay.
The rest of them still need to be approved. So there are
Okay.
2 that we had approved previously.
Yeah.
One is the head coach for girls basketball, and one is the head coach for gymnastics.
Okay.
But we did add them to the sheet, so we had it complete.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. So then the assistant coach is Jordan Spalding. Junior high coaches are Brad Pence and
Ninth grade coach.
Or ninth grade,
Correct.
yep.
Assistant, we're still looking.
and then the junior high is Brad Pence and Brad Skuglin. Then the assistant coach for gymnastic is Teresa Bogie. Then we'll review and consider approval of the seniority list for the certified staff, the maintenance and custodial, and food service. And then there's a date of service document for the paraprofessionals.
Correct. This is an annual piece
Yep.
for us.
Review and consider approval of the resignation of Tyler Walters, Fitness Center Supervisor, effective November 1st, 2017. Review and consider approval of Kimberly Hansen, resignation as a secondary principal assistant, administrative assistant, effective October 31st, 2017. Review and consider approval of the following non-athletic assignments for the 2017-18 school year. Speech and assistant speech. The head speech is Thorne Knowlton, and assistant speech is Valerie Miller. Going on to the next page is number 6, review and consider approval of adding the high school robotics team.
And that's something we had talked about for a while, particularly going to the gala. It's our intention, that our hope that we'll be able to use a little bit of the gala money to help support the robotics team.
Okay. And then with that, review and consider approval of hiring Tim Whaler and Jay Thompson as advisors for the high school robotics team.
They will split the stipend that is given to them.
Okay, and then we will review and consider approval to revise the 2017-18 fee schedule for adding the high school robotics non-athletic participation fee.
Yeah, and that one, if you remember, you've already approved a fee schedule. Now we're adding another team, so we are going to charge like they would normally charge. So what will change is that in the past, it said Paynesville, for non-athletic participation fees, it said Paynesville non-athletic programs include speech, play productions, pops choir, and jazz band. Now we'll get rid of the and jazz band, we'll go pops choir, jazz band, and high school robotics. So, and that's under the same piece as far as it breaks down, grade level 6 to 8, $40, 9 through 12, $45. So the only thing that's changing is that we're adding the robotics team to that schedule.
And then number 9, review and consider approval of the following non-athletic assignment for the 2017-18 school year, and that's for the prom advisors, half Dominic Flatto, and then Allison Jensen is the other
Correct.
half. So those are underneath our consent. We do one motion for them, unless if somebody has something out of the consent that they need further discussions with. Otherwise, I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move.
I got a motion from Rick,
Second.
second from Randy. Any other further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And carried. We're going to go on to business, and anybody in the audience, remember after the business presentation, if anybody has a question or a concern, please raise your hand and we'll do our best to answer it. So the first one is a presentation on our test results.
I'm going to ask today that we do this.
Yep.
Because we'll look at it. There and I'll switch places. First of all, we're about 2 weeks behind what we did last year. I only know that because we had to find the date that I gave this information to you last year. The test results, Bob has this and he will share it with all of you. So if you want to look at any of it in more detail, and then there are going to be links to the spreadsheets that we created the graphs from. So if you want to look at specific numbers, you can just hit the link. I believe I opened it correctly. If it doesn't work, just pop either Bob or myself an email, and it's just a setting that I'd have to change in my Google Drive. The first thing that we need to look at is we're in a transition year. We are moving from No Child Left Behind to ESSA, which stands for Every Student Succeeds Act. ESSA has been passed, but we have a few things that are in the air. They had an early application process and a late application process that each state in the 50 states had to submit to the federal government. And Minnesota decided they would go with the late application date, so we got it turned in on September 18th so that we had greater time for public input as far as what we were going to do. The federal government now has 120 days to review it, and then they have 3 options. They can approve our application for what we're going to do for ESSA, they can deny it, or they can ask for revisions. There were only 6 states that turned it in early in April, so that 120 days for 44 states is going to be very interesting. ESSA has some things that are going to be different. Our testing itself is not going to change as far as what we have to give and what we're required to give, but how they're going to interpret the data is going to be different. So one more time, that target that we kind of knew where it was is shifting one more time. There's some areas of focus with assessment and evaluation of education. That's the testing portion that we're looking at. Looking for a well-rounded student. That fits very much so within our World's Best Workforce Plan, the direction that we're going with expanding some of our offerings and those types of things. And the big thing there is saying that for a change, it isn't only reading and math. It's saying that students need to have that exposure to the other types of courses, other types of things. Reading and math is still going to be that basis, but saying that we're going to need to have that expanded role. Education accountability, that's saying we're doing what we're supposed to do and making sure that we get the information for the test results and everything else. Equity, here they're talking about making sure that we don't have the disparity between our students that are of ethnic diversity to us, or the fact that we've got the poverty rate. And we've talked about that a little bit as far as how our testing scores go. And they're looking at not being so punitive and saying, you didn't do what you were supposed to do, but instead saying, how can we lift everybody in the state up and make sure we're providing the proper support for school improvement all the way around. And there's there's quite a bit of information. Rather than going into the great amount of detail until we find out what the federal government tells us, we're just going to kind of go. The one thing that we do need to know is that even though we won't know until January, information that we've already got on our test scores from previous years and from this year will be interpreted based on whatever the federal government accepts for Minnesota's ESSA plan. So we're crossing our fingers and hoping that it goes through the way that they said. This was this year's headline, and I kind of found the flat line thing here. In Minnesota state MCA scores see little change. They said they used the word flatline. So we need to kind of hope that ESSA is going to bring some difference into the process. As far as the school district, we were above this line. We went up instead of staying flatline like the rest of the state did for the most part. We have some blips where we can expect that for anybody, but we, as a whole, I think we were very pleased with what we did. It wasn't huge gains, but it was gains nonetheless. This is kind of a recurring theme that I have. We have to remember that it's not so much the kids knowing this particular fact. And as we're getting more and more technology, the statement is we need to train them to think. And those are some of the things that are happening with the tests. So teaching some strategies on what to do with the testing and making sure that we're meeting those needs for our students. If you would like to see what anybody else can, or anybody would, the Minnesota report card is linked on the state website. I'm gonna see, it will take us right here. This is what it looks like, and you can get information that is available for every school in the state. The big portion is coming into state assessments. If you want to look at what our achievement levels are, you can go in here for the MCAs and the MTAS. The access is going to become much more important, and the access is what we do with our English language learners. A key portion of ESSA is that is going to be another point that they're going to refer to on the accountability portion. So when we come back, that's the one that's available to the public. If you're interested in more detail, we have the secure reports that we can get for you. And the one that I think it was Bruce had asked about one of the last times I was here was, what do we know is happening with our students when they leave us? The report that they are coming out with is called SLEDS. It's Insecure Reports, and what they do is they're able to give us information on what happens to our students after they graduate. How many went to a 2-year school, how many went to a 4-year school, and that is verified through registration data that comes back to us from the schools that they may have gone to. It's as accurate as the information we can get, but it gives a pretty good picture of what's happening with our students. When we look at this, the blue line is the state area, red is us, and coming across, we see that we didn't increase a ton at the elementary school, but it did go up ever so slightly. When you get this, to get to the spreadsheet, if you go to any place that it has the heading here and you click on that, it will take you to the spreadsheet that created the graph that we had. So if you want to look at any specific numbers rather than just where the line goes, you will have access to that as we go across for any of them. So that any place that it's underlined, that will give you those. With the elementary and math, we did very well with our third and fourth graders. Fifth grade is a much harder test, and that's where we saw that we kind of leveled off and went down a little bit. We're working on that. That's going to be something that we've been spending time with our math curriculum alignment already this year. This one gets a little bit more colorful, will be the easiest way to say it. Blue will always be the state average, and because we talk so much about what's happening as a secondary building, we put them in together. We have the proficiency is those students that received a meet or exceed score, and this is our math score. Our concern was right in this point last year with our high school math scores, and as you see, not sure what it was that we did, but something that we did definitely helped with that increase. We're planning on doing some of the same things in preparation for the MCAs this year with our juniors, and hopefully we see that trend line continue to go up. Once again, if you want to see the numbers specifically, I think we were at a 40 there, and I think this represents about a 55% proficiency, which, if you look at it here, is higher than the state average. We always want to be better than the state average because that takes everybody and combines it and comes up with your averages. So the schools, there are schools in the state, when you look at it, when we're at 55%, we go, only half of our kids are being proficient at it. There are schools in the state that are sitting at 12% of their student population. The new ESSA goals are saying 90% of our students across the state will need to be proficient. We have some work to do.
Didn't we last year, we changed the math where we changed that,
The courses,
the courses?
we did that. We also took and had Mr. Carlson and Mr. Heimerman and myself in here, and we did, here's my perspective, here's the everyday language that you need to know, and then kind of bounced it back and forth. And the number of students that said, you know what, we're really glad you did that, was pretty impressive. I know that the PowerPoint that we put together, there was requests in a class of last year's juniors, I think there was, so this year's seniors, I think there's about 70 students, and we had about 25 of them said, could you just send that to me so I can look at it? And I think that helped. I really do. And if it's those little things that we need to do, we changed it so that they had greater opportunity for practice, and then we gave them, here's some stuff about a week before, and we had some good results.
So we did, you know that we did something.
Yes, we're not sure which one did it, but we're not going to give up on any of them. We're going to do the same things again.
And for the math changes, remember they took place about halfway
Right.
through the year.
Right,
So
yep.
this will be the first full year of those changes.
Yep.
With the elementary reading, and we're talking about the 3 grades there, so third, fourth, and fifth, we stayed about the same. We're looking into that because we saw a drop in the 5th grade, and we're not sure why, but we'll do some research and find out some things. We're looking at some strand information. The 3rd and 4th grade stayed about steady, went up a little bit. We had a little bit, like I said, a little bit of a drop in the 5th grade, and Mr. Gardner is very concerned about it. We're looking at it to see what happened.
Don, can I ask you a question about that?
You absolutely can.
Drop in the 5th grade, does that mean one year's 5th grade to the next year's 5th grade, or the 4th grade to 5th grade?
That's a great question, and the answer is 5th grade to 5th grade, because that's how the state presents the information.
So it's different kids?
It's different kids, exactly, and that can be a big portion of it. We also, part of my job in looking at it is we're looking at that trend. So taking those kids from third grade all the way through high school. Was it a class that weren't high achievers? Or was it a class that had some really good high flyers? And you know, we've had a couple of classes that have come through where we've had a group that's up here, not a big bunch in the middle, and then we've had a group that's been down here. So we've looked at it both ways. What we're presenting here is the way the state puts it out for the papers to read, or you know, to put out in the press. So, but excellent question as far as looking at that. Our reading scores in 15 with the high school scores, we had that drop. We're moving in the right direction with the 6 through 8, staying pretty stable, and just slightly above that average for the state. But we're moving in the right direction. We spent an awful lot of time looking at some of the things that we can do, and at the end, I'm going to give you kind of a laundry list of some of the things that we've been working very hard on to make sure that we're moving forward. Science, we give the science in 3 different grades. They take that first one in 5th grade, then they take it as an 8th grader, and then in high school. It is not used for any of the accountability, but we're required to give it. And if you talk to the science teachers, one of the things that they're going to say is it's not so much what we've taught in science, but how well our kids read. So there's usually a pretty good correlation between how those kids are doing on their reading test and how they do on their science test, with the exception of this one, because we saw our 5th graders' reading scores go down this year. Our science test went up, so that one didn't quite work the way we thought it would. Science here, we looked at it as well. The high school scores went up. When we looked at the middle school scores, this would be as 8th graders. And the one thing that we had here, when Mr. Whaler will talk about it, is we had some kids that, because of some of our remedial courses or intervention classes that we're giving with either reading or math, they may have been pulled out of science for a portion of the year. And it's one of those that, where do you do the give and take? And we're looking at some other options. If, you know, and somebody had said, well, why don't we take those kids out of their electives? Well, if all they do is sit in their seat academic all day, research says that that doesn't work as either. And you can't take away that opportunity, especially middle schoolers, when they're, you know, their energy level goes like this on a given day, and depends on which hour you happen to have them. This one I found rather interesting. This is 2016. So the Star Tribune has some person that is a really big data geek, and they take every school in the state and they look at what we've done over the last few years, and they give what they're predicting we should do as far as our achievement level in proficiency, and then what we actually achieve. This would be a year ago, and they did the same thing, and that's going to be the next slide here for this current year. And this link gives you the option, so you can kind of look at, if you're interested in other schools around, it's one that's real easy to get to. If you click in here, you need to just continue to the site, and then it will go here. You can pick any school in the state and go to, you know, if we wanted to look at ACGC secondary, and then it will give you their predicted and their actual proficiency scores on those 2017 tests that we had. And that's based on trends that have come about. So they're using some type of calculated program. I know it might be very similar to the one that Bob has that we're using to do some of the comparisons as well. It says a 10% variance in the actual scores. Not sure if that's something that's how accurate it is, but it's what the public sees. So if somebody is looking to move into the area and they think that the Star Tribune is the reliable source, they're going to go, which school do I want my kids to go to? That one's an easy one for them to use, whereas the state site is a little bit difficult to navigate if you don't know how. This one got a little bit dark in here. So I'll just kind of give you the highlights. What have we done as a district? We focused on curriculum alignment to make sure that what we're teaching matches what the state says we're supposed to be teaching in reading, math, and science. We spent a lot of time. That's how we came up with the revision for the high school math class. That's how we've shifted. And sometimes you get a little resistance when we do this because, well, I know what I'm supposed to teach. Well, the standards are there because they want the education across the state to be equitable. So if you take a social studies class in Paynesville and you end up transferring to Spring Lake Park, and you're taking that same kind of social studies class. They want to make sure that everybody's getting a similar type of education, and because of the state having it. Number two, we've had a lot of discussion on it. It is not just an issue for the English teachers or the math teachers or the science teachers. We are all responsible, and we've got that buy-in. There was a little bit of resistance for a while, but we're like, we all have our part to play, whether we are teaching social studies or Phi-Ed or music or whatever else, and the paras are an important portion of it as well. So the entire staff is looking at it. We're doing some deeper data dives, so we're looking at it. We can get the benchmark information that says not only are we getting proficient, but which areas do we need to see if our curriculum's hitting? Is it going to be standard 3.4.7.1? And I don't know what that one is. It's just one that came off the top of my head. But we're doing that. We're at that point where our staff is more educated and able to say, what do we need to know better, do better? And, you know, that's that process that we have to go to. We're building our delivery system. What have we done? We had the kids come in. We can prep them a little bit different. We're teaching them some strategies and making sure that that movement is, just because you didn't do well in 4th grade doesn't mean we're leaving you there. We're going to progress through. The test-taking strategies, sometimes it's not knowing the actual fact, but figuring out how to read that word problem or how to read that graph. Graphs are going to be similar all the way through, so teaching that. Number 6 is really important, and I think it was a good move on the state's part. They said that we don't tie test scores to graduation anymore, and that might have been a reason why kids' scores dropped. So they said, what can we do that doesn't cost us any money and able to do this? And they worked very long and hard with the post-secondary schools. And they've come up with some cut marks that if a student scores it on their MCAs when they're in high school, so their reading one or their math, they take that score, so we're putting them on their high school transcripts that are going to go with them, and they go off to any state school. And if they have that, the school cannot say, you are required to take a remedial class. It says, we've scored well enough on a standardized test that you're not going to have to take that class. And Phil, can you help me out here? You said that your son was going to end up, wasn't it you that said, they said he had to take it, was going to have to take it, and we kind of looked with it and said he was passing these courses, and why would we pay that $500?
Yeah, a few years ago.
Yeah, a few years ago.
Absolutely.
And if you have to take a remedial class in college, here's what it is. You get 0 credit, but you pay $500 to $700 for that class, and this is going to be that standardized statement that says, I proved it once. I don't have to do it again. So I think that was a good move. And then ensuring that the idea that we're teaching the standards, and some people go, well, we're teaching to the test. We're teaching what the state says we're supposed to provide as an education, and it happens to be what's on the test. So that's what we've got there. The last one is a little bit of my sarcasm that I'm going to put in, and Bob and I kind of joke about this. We're going to keep moving forward because we have to. As a district, we're improving, but we understand that the work's not done. We can't just go, oh, we've made it. Because we live in Minnesota, and that road that's smooth today, when I go down it and I'm heading to the cities on 55 in the spring, it's going to change. And we know that those changes are going to come. So it's just like the potholes. We're good where we are right now, but as we move through, we need to keep moving forward. Like I said, Bob will share this with you. Any other questions you might have for me?
Are all of these test scores, these percentages and everything, they include special ed children also and non-English speaking?
With this, the only thing that is not included in here is our very severe special ed students. They take a separate test, which is called the MCAS, and we're using MCA scores. A few years ago, we would have had a third column that was there that said our students that were special ed students and met certain criteria could take a modified MCA test. with the last go-round with the No Child Left Behind legislation, they said you can't do that. So unless a student meets very high and difficult criteria to take the MTAS, which is an alternate assessment, they are going to take the same test. So yes, it does include our special ed students, with the exception of those with extreme disabilities. It includes our ELL students as well. The only thing that is different based on kind of our projections is they always go back to your student MARS numbers that go in on October 1. So if we get a transient student that comes in the week that we're testing, we're still required to test them, but it's not going to go and reflect on how our school did. Alrighty,
Thanks, Don.
you're welcome.
All right. So we moved on to number 2, review and consider approval of the new fitness center supervisor and PAWS program assistant salary schedule for the 2017-18 school year. It's in your packet.
Yeah, Matt and I did some talking about this. At one time, the fitness center supervisor and the PAWS program assistants were different. There were 2 different pay scales for them. When we looked at it, a lot has changed. We believe that they are very much in line with each other and should be on the same pay scale. So we did combine the pay scales. We also removed the first lane, or the first step in it, because as I've told the board and other things, we've gotten way behind and we are not competitive, at least particularly for our starting salaries. So we removed that and we did add a step 5 so that we kept 5 steps in there. We both agree with this. Another thing that we're changing is that substitute pay rate was at 10 and they couldn't get subs, and we've moved all the other subs up, pay scales up, so we need to move what we're paying our subs for these positions also up to $11. It's in line with other agreements that we've had, and I think our future agreements on what they did increase. This is a 1-year agreement. The main reason that we're going to a 1-year agreement is that most of our other groups, in fact, really all of our other groups, have an agreement of some type. It very much well specifies what they get at certain times or don't get based on what's happening. The community ed group doesn't really have one. There's a couple, one community ed, I think it's just one group for community ed that's in our support staff one, or is it just 2? Yeah. So, but it's very limited on what's in our support staff, and we want to take the year and we want to look at that whole situation and come back to the board with a recommendation on what we think should happen with that. There's 2 ways we could do it. We could build an agreement for community ed itself, which causes some positives and some negatives if we do that. But the other way that we can go with that is move community ed into the support staff agreement. But if we're going to do that, there's a lot of work to be done on that too. So that's why we're saying let's go with a 1-year contract, and maybe we can get some of this other stuff sorted out and come back to the board with a recommendation. You know, the increases are going to be around the 70-cent increase per hour. But again, we've fallen behind. It's similar to what we've had in other groups. So I would certainly recommend, and Matt and I are both recommending that we approve.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
So I got a motion from Lou and a second from Cheryl. Any other further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and carried. Informational reports. Administrative report, Robert Hewitt.
Okay, just a few things. The board meeting, just so the community understands, board meeting, because Matt is gone, we'll be posting it on Monday instead of, normally we get it posted onto the website this week, but we'll be posting on Monday. So just be patient, wait till Monday, and the board meeting presentation will be there. We're looking at the next special board meeting to discuss possible facility project on November 27th. Just keep watching the main website for the district, and we'll post it in plenty of notice, and I'll remind people on the November 21st meeting when that exactly will be. I'm going to send out an email today, and if I don't get any negative responses back, most likely that next meeting for facilities will be on the 27th of November. We have some work to do. That's why we're taking a little bit of time. Next week, David is interviewing for a para position. I'm going to be interviewing for a duplicator position. The problem that we're going to run into with both those positions is that our next meeting isn't until November 21st, and there's only one in November. So I guess I'm asking the board, there's two ways we can proceed. One would be that the board understands that at the most, those two positions we may start before the board approves, or we could have a special board meeting for the board to approve those two positions at the most. Is there a desire by the board on which way you would like to go with that? If we had just one meeting or two meetings, then it wouldn't be so bad, but...
What do you want to do? What would you like to do?
Let's see, have another meeting or not have another meeting?
So you want another meeting?
I would prefer that the board trust us that on the November 21st meeting, we come forward with at most those two positions, and we say that we hired them next week, or right after we get the interviews done.
Yeah.
So if the board is okay with that, I know that the board likes to do this. This is just one of those exceptions where we don't want to have two meetings in the month. And the timing just didn't work out real well. So, and we've been without the para position in particular. You know, I could probably get by without the duplicator, but I know that the teachers would appreciate it too if we'd be able to start with that one.
Sure.
Okay. Verizon, I've been in contact with Verizon. They are asking us to put a couple antenna on top of a couple of our light poles. Okay, there's some compensation for that, and certainly before I agree to do anything, I will bring it back to the board. I just wanted you to be aware that if you see people out there about Verizon trucks, they would end up replacing two of our power poles because our poles right now wouldn't support the 150-pound antenna they want to put on. I did look at them. I can't say that they're going to win a beauty contest, but at the same time, they're not that bad. One option that I'm looking at, and at least thinking about, if we get some compensation for that, maybe that's a place that we could take that money and put it into a hotspot that when our kids go on a long trip, then they're able to do some work right in the bus. So, but I'll bring that all back. I just wanted to give you an update on it. There's some differences between us and what they're giving other districts, and I'm trying to figure out why there's a difference. So
More
that's...
or less?
In one case, it's more. In one case, it's considerably less. So I'm trying to figure out why that is the case. So that's what I'm working on right now. They have been very cooperative with any questions that I've had concerning that. It is a long-term agreement. I don't know what the cancellation terms are, so I need to check on that too, because it's probably up to a 25-year agreement that they would be wanting to do that. That's kind of where I'm at with that one. But again, I will not do anything. That'll come to the board before any final decision is made. Enrollment has dropped a little bit, I hate to say. From the beginning time of the year, we're down probably about 9 students. When I see these notices come through, these students, for the most part, are just moving. You know, they're not moving close in. They're moving considerably away. One, I think, went to North Dakota. One has gone to Wilmer. Too far for them to just keep transporting back to us. So we're down a little bit. We're up in ECSE, but again, we've dropped about 9 students. That's one of the reasons that you will continue to hear me say we need to have a reserve fund so that when those fluctuations take place, we're able to absorb them. The good news is that right now, when the audit comes through, it looks like our audit will be better in regards to the reserve fund than originally we thought. And of course, that'll come up here in a month or so. Just a couple things on fundraiser. We had a Spanish fundraiser. They made $80.04, and that was Spanish-German activities is what it was for, and it was kind of a Pizza Ranch one. And they also did for Spanish Yankee candle sales, and they made about $419 on that one. So just be aware of that. I have you all registered for MSBA now, so if something changes where you can't make that leadership conference, please let me know as soon as you can. I have both lodging and the conference itself you're registered for. Just a couple of things for the community. Cross-country sections are on Thursday. Where is that at?
Long Prairie.
Long Prairie. And we have our first home playoff volleyball game. That's this Thursday here. And then on Saturday at 2 o'clock, we have a playoff game for football also here. So that's kind of what's going on.
Cool. Any other board sharing?
Motion to adjourn.
I got a motion from Lou.
Second.
Second from Randy. Any other further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and carried.